Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Darcy. How are you?
Good. Okay. Fine.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm here.
Welcome to Awaken Positive Power, guys, where Darcy, Marta, and myself, Jemima Godson, will talk to you regarding depression, mental awareness, and suicide prevention. Some heavy topics, yes. Those of you who've been with us, you know we talk to you like you are our friends, which of course you are, our community. We come on a personal level, and right now, we're all going through stuff. Big stuff. There was a major shift going on in the universe, and I understand that we're all sort of collectively feeling heavy energy. Some of us understand a lot more than others because we're spiritually inclined. Others are a bit confused, which us who are spiritually inclined are there to help. I hope. Anyway, that's what we're here for. So today, we actually have a wonderful guest, a friend of mine, a soul brother, who I met during some ceremonies I was doing. His name's Jared, and he will be coming on talking with his experience dealing with post-traumatic stress and depression after his brother committed suicide. So very tough and intimate and intense, sensitive subject. And balls for him for showing, excuse me, I'm allowed to say that, balls for him showing up and talking with us, because we're all in this together and we all have a story and we're all humbled by each other's stories. And when we hear someone else's story, we go, oh my God, I could never survive that. I don't know how you do that. And back vice versa. So it's really beautiful to know we're not alone out there. On that note, Das, if you were here last week, you knew I was struggling with my one day of having marijuana, cigarettes, and one drink. And I never really had an problem with alcohol. But this week, I lost it, guys. I lost it. I overdosed on marijuana. People probably laugh. But no, for me, I learnt this last week. It triggered me majorly to a post-traumatic experience from 2 years ago, which I should be suffering now, which I haven't realized until this week. And I went to a complete psychosis of paranoia, delusions, people against me, people that the world was out to get me, the plot. And it was serious. And I was going to go to hospital. I was going to take myself to hospital and just say I've lost my mind, because I wasn't quite sure how to get back into myself. Thank God I was able to, with ceremonies and with my spiritual training and with my everything else, I was able to actually sit with it and observe it and see that and that made me not crazy. That made me understand, okay, if I can observe this, then I've got a way out, hopefully. But it was really scary. And so just talking about dealing with traumatic experiences, I'm all fidgety and nervous. I don't know, Darcy, where am I going? Where am I going, Darcy? You talk.
I mean, that's the nature of post-traumatic stress disorder, is it shows up later. I mean, when you're in the middle of a crisis, your fight or flight response kicks in so that you can survive, right? It helps you with your decision making, it helps you with your survival. So when you're in a real major crisis, you can lift yourself out of it, and it's the whole thing that goes back to us as cavemen and hunting, and there's the tiger, and do we fight it or do we run from it? So, and the problem we have now as modern human beings is that we are in a constant state of fight or flight. We're constantly in a state of fight or flight. If you're driving down the freeway to go to work, you're in a state of fight or flight.
Sorry, Jared's actually on the phone. So can I just pause this for 1 second and we'll come back to you guys? I just want to see if he's okay. Thank you. Okay. Hey guys, sorry about that. Thank you. Jared will be with us in a second. So Darcy was talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, and I
was just saying that we go into crisis mode. We have to take care of ourselves, right? And then when the crisis is over, that adrenaline rush, that memory, that understanding of the crisis gets lodged in our body, muscular memory, as well as your brain is a muscle, your body is a muscle, and so it holds on to that energy, that crisis energy.
I found
later, it comes out later. When is it going to come out? Who knows? Yeah. How is it going to come out? Who knows? What's going to be the trigger? Who knows?
I do know that it's 2 years since the experience. So
that's about right.
Yeah, about right. Yeah. But it's also interesting, your brain, the way that it works then. My survival technique then was a flight, because I couldn't stay where I was, which was really that was really profound. The way my mental state was working was not right at this moment. Do you know what I mean? So it was like really interesting to see how the Bible technique was there and it helped me. But right now it's so far removed from any reality that I actually am in. Just really interesting to see how we cope. Jared has just actually popped in, so I'm going to let him in.
Say one, wait, yeah. Jemima, hang on a second.
Yes,
I just want to say one thing about that before we bring in Jared, because you were breaking up a little bit. Part of the reason then it sounds to me like your post-traumatic stress is showing up right now, it's because, you know, you've been dealing with moving and housing insecurity, right? Mm-hmm. And right now you're sort of stable. And when we relax, right? When we relax, just for a moment, is when all that stuff comes up because the body relaxes. So once you step out or away from your fight or flight response and your body starts to relax a little bit, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, what are these big feelings? What's happening here? Your body has a moment to process. And so then you'll probably step back into your old ways of processing, which was avoidance, which was for you drug use, etc. That was your old way of doing it. And
that's what I started this time, was with the weed.
Right.
I can't do weed. And now I know, I mean, I've always said I can do a little bit here, a little bit. I know my mind is broke from the massive years of drug abuse I had, my huge addiction, my shooting up all the time, like on top of weed and anything else really, heroin, anything. And so it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I lost all sense of who I was and my self-worth, my self-confidence. It was to the point where I was going to take myself to hospital. I don't do that. I don't do that, people. No, in a hospital. Ew. No. I'd rather heal at home. You know, so it was pretty radical. But 2 days I've stopped smoking and I feel so much better. So much better. And I'm still there, but I know I can. My Jemima, my authentic Jemima, is 100% up at the forefront again. And hallelujah. And I learnt my lesson. You know, learnt my lesson again with drugs. But you know, it's that weed was, I hadn't learnt my lesson with weed. And I needed to obviously.
Yeah, a lot of people think of weed as harmless. I was just reading about
is that me or you?
I don't know. I was just I think it's your guy wanting to come in to the room.
I know, patience.
Yeah. I was just reading about how what a weed addiction is, and that you actually do have withdrawals from weed addiction. So I have to read more. I, like the rest of society, always kind of treated weed as no big deal. But you know, it is symptomatic to other things, and it really.
And we're all different. It was physiologically made up differently. You know, I used to be able to do it in a different way, and I do understand sometimes it sparks me creatively. But now I also know that my brain is messed up from my drug abuse and my trauma. So I can't miss it. I don't want to go there again. I don't want to ever be in that place again, which is so traumatic and so disabling. You know, it really felt like I was not going to make it back. So
I'm so glad that you are here.
Oh my God, thank you. I
am so glad that you're here. Really, truly, I am so glad that you're here.
Thank you, and you. Let's bring Jared in.
Yeah.
Here we go. He's gonna be like, "What the hey, Jared?
Jared Broadbent.
Is he here? Jared.
He's connecting to audio.
He's connecting.
Can you connect?
Sorry, guys, it might be long. Jared.
Connect to your video, Jared.
Jared? Oh, here he is. Yay! Hello, beautiful. Mwah. Hello, my love. So good to see you.
Ladies. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Jared, this is Darcy. Darcy, this is Jared.
Nice
very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi.
It's great to have you here today, Jared. So, welcome.
Yeah, we were talking about post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, just a nice, easy Sunday morning topic. It's bright and quite fluffy. But Jared, I asked you here today, my love, because I understand you've been through particular trauma in your life regarding suicide of your brother. And I just wanted to, I mean, you inspired me when Jared and I met through ceremony, and we have, I don't know, he's inspired me a lot through his strength and determination and his humbleness. And I really respect that he's triumphed over his trauma. Obviously, it's a day in, day out thing. And who am I to say that to Jared? Jared's life, he's probably going, yeah, I don't think so. Or maybe completely, you know. But I do feel that from him. And I thought it'd be wonderful to touch base with just another person, just another people like you and us, you and me. I can't speak English, that's okay. But you and I, just another person like you and I, and who has survived amazing like battles within life. So anyway, hi Jared. Bless you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Jared, go ahead. You're going to say something, and then I have a question for you.
No, good. Yeah.
No, I just said it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have specific coping techniques that you used? Do you have a daily practice, or do you just try to wing it day by day? Or can you tell us a little bit about what you're?
I do. Yeah, I do. I don't know that that's so much as coping. My brother's death was back in 2005, so it's been 16 years. It's been a long time. But you know, the practices that I do, I just consider them more of a, you know, a spiritual practice that I do every day that helps me in a variety of ways, you know, that helps to combat depression and anxiety and all the things that you know, that life can bring us. And that mine is just the I do the Wim Hof breathing. I've been doing that for a little over a year, and it's almost a little bit like a plant medicine ceremony sometimes, because it really brings you into, you know, your true self, into your heart, into that space, to where the mind is quiet. And it's difficult, but with practice, you know, it becomes easier. But it takes about an hour, and I'll do that, and then I'll usually follow that up with a meditation, and then with a little bit of rapé, another plant medicine from South America, just to help clear up the mind and whatnot. But that's pretty much my my daily routine, and I don't do it every single day. You know, I just got back from a 3-week driving camping trip, and it kind of kicked my butt, so I'm kind of resting for a few days.
Jared, so can I ask some tender topic questions?
Sure.
When you found the news out about your brother, I don't really want to go into like the depth of the drama and the trauma. I'd like to go into how you coped with it. So I'm not quite sure how to question that, but how did you cope? Maybe that's just the best question I can ask, sort of thing. How did you not fall into, I don't know, anger? I mean, I don't know, what did you go through? Who am I to say what you went through? You know, what did you go through during that time?
Well, that's really interesting looking back on it, because it was actually a friend of his that called me and broke the news. And at the time, my brother was 36 and he was up at Lake Tahoe, and he was going to school there and living there. And you know, somebody on the other end of the phone who was his friend and also a friend of mine, you know, I'm sorry to break it to you, your brother is dead. I mean, it just didn't register, you know, at first. It didn't register. And it actually took a long time for it really to sink in. I'd wake up, you know, for months afterwards. I remember waking up crying and just kind of being in denial of the whole situation and what had happened and whatnot. And eventually, I guess it was about a year later, I had what they call a Kundalini experience, a Kundalini awakening, which just rattled my world. But it was after that I just needed to disappear. I disappeared. I put everything that I had I could carry with me in my car, and I disappeared for a little over a year. And I didn't tell anyone. I cut up my credit cards. I made sure nobody knew where I was going. And that's really when it started to hit me emotionally. So this is a couple of years after his death. And I guess I never really knew what love was. And I didn't realize how much a part of my heart that my brother Russ was. That he was really the only one in my family that was like me. I guess you could call me, and he and I were kind of black sheep, of that particular family, and we really related. He was just so real, and I didn't know anybody else like that in the world, and so it hit me really, really hard, and I really just started to just break down, and I mean fall on the floor and just lose it, just completely lose it. And at the same time, I'd kind of cast myself out into the wilderness. Looking back on it now, it was exactly what I needed, because there's something about driving, and particularly driving long distances through nature, that is healing in itself. And I heard that from another guy who was in the band Rush, who his wife and daughter had been killed in a traffic accident. He climbed on his motorcycle and drove from Canada to Belize. And I heard him say that, and I said, yeah, you're right. That's exactly right. And he would camp out in nature, and I was doing the same thing. I'd go to remote locations and I'd camp out, and I was at the time being forced to turn inside because everything outside had just shut down. I couldn't relate to anything or anyone anymore. And so this inner teacher, this inner technology in our DNA starts to unravel, unfold through that experience, through that nature. Suddenly I'm learning how to meditate, but I never even knew I was meditating. I was just following a trail of breadcrumbs that was literally being laid out for me. And a lot of it was in the external world, so I was seeing signs and things like that in the external world. And so there was this, this other door, this spiritual door that had opened up as a result of the Kundalini thing. And that's when, I really realized just how much I loved my brother Russ at a soul essence level. And I really learned what love was. And I learned to love, everybody in my life that way. Eventually, and before that, love was some concept of what can this person do for me as long as they're doing this, not doing that, then I will love them. And so I was completely lost and confused in the idea of what love really is. So that's kind of what it went through. It was an experience that lasted for many years, many years. And to this day, I'm completely at peace with it, because I know that, my brother Russ didn't really depart. I kind of looked at, the nature of reality differently now. Mm-hmm. And I also feel him in my heart. And he'll actually say things through me sometimes. He'll make me bust up laughing. I'm like, that's not me. That's not me. That's my brother. And I love talking about him, because right now, just talking about it, I'm getting this rush of good feeling, this blanket of just, of goosebumps.
I've got goosebumps too. My love. Bless you.
That are going through me right now, because he was just such a beautiful soul, and I miss that. I miss that real connection when somebody is so authentic. I mean, he didn't care what anybody thought. And he wore no masks. And he rubbed a lot of feathers. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but he also made friends everywhere he went, like instantly. And to me, at the time, I had a mortgage company. He was working for me part-time. We had both worked for my dad's mortgage company. And I was doing well, and Russ was always kind of, he was a musician, so he was always kind of screwing off and really not taking anything seriously. And I was kind of on the side of, you get your stuff together. But at the same time, as I watched him navigate through life, I realized he's got everybody beat. This is success. It doesn't matter if he doesn't have any money. How many people have money are miserable? They can't even stand their lives. I mean, they hate their life. I mean, the whole thing is a hoax. You end up, all burned out and out of energy, and you never lived for a moment. Well, Russ didn't live that way. And so You know, even though at the time he viewed me with my mortgage company as successful and all that, I'm like, no, 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 no. He was my hero. He was my hero because he was authentic all the time. And I see that it's so rare in this world, you know, to run across somebody like that. And that's one of the reasons I love, you know, the plant medicine ceremonies, because you get to meet people like Jemima and other people who are 100% real and authentic in that moment, and you just immediately bond with them, and that just doesn't happen. You know, it just doesn't happen anywhere else. So plant medicines for me came along many years later. I didn't run across that until 2017. I'd read about ayahuasca in 2016. And part of my whole journey was this exploration of darkness. And so I kind of reached a point where, you know, I just, once again, enough is enough. And I started taking the medicine, and it helped me to reconcile that and to understand the purpose of it. But it also helped me heal my own wounds from childhood, and help me heal when my brother is concerned, and, you know, in his passing. But I'm sorry, just a second.
World.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'll leave it for the moment. And
Jared, can I just quickly ask a question? I know you were bugging to ask a question, Das.
No.
When you when you went to your dark night, your alone time out in the woods, you said challenging, like finding little insights from nature, from guides, from spirit, whoever you may believe in, to guide you along your way to healing. How did you confront? I know you said it was, I don't know. How did you confront your fears in terms of trusting? Because you have to trust your intuition then, and feeling so fragile, I find it hard to trust my intuition. But there are so many guides there from, like, we are all interconnected, and the universe is trying to help us, and we are able to see that there are no things as coincidences if we open up our mind and see it all interconnected. I mean, in that stage of healing, how did you confront your fear, or were you afraid, or you just like, fuck it, let's go? Pardon my language, sorry.
Oh no, I was definitely afraid. I was living in sheer terror a lot of the times, and I felt like I was being pursued by demons, but those were my demons, you know. I confronted my fears because I had no other choice. I was put in a position where I had no place to turn, or at least I didn't view that I did. And I had no other choice but to deal with them. And so, yeah, I did have what they call the dark night of the soul, where, you know, your life is, certain parts of your life are reviewed, but from a different perspective. And I saw a lot of the things that I had done, you know, and the lies that I had told myself, and how the mind worked, the blueprint, the mechanics of the mind itself, and this is what I was learning through that dark night of the soul, of how we'll rationalize something and then turn around and point our finger at somebody else for doing the exact same thing. And so that's a very, very depressing moment, you know, when you say, my goodness gracious, you know, I mean, because it just sucks the spirit out of you, and leaves you with this sense of defeat and humiliation that is inescapable. And I'm grateful for every single moment of that, because it was an incredibly beneficial experience. And even though I remember screaming at God at the time, you know, saying, please take me out of this, take me out of this, take me out of this situation. I'm homeless, I'm living in my car. It was by choice though, you know. You know, and if that had happened and I had been taken out of that and placed into a comfortable situation like before, I would have learned nothing. I would have learned absolutely nothing. So through that difficulty, through that challenge, like, human beings don't grow in complacency. We just don't grow much, you know. But presented with challenges and difficulties, human beings are, the very best is brought up. And that's been proven time and time again through history, you know, like what's happening now, in a sense. it's bringing out this darkness. That's another thing I saw, is just like the yin and the yang. The darkness that we go through drives the light out. I mean, what would darkness be without light? And so it was just, I just didn't have any other choice. And I didn't want to run away from my fears. I wanted to deal with them. But I did feel like I was being chased there for a while. I was being pursued by demons. But during that year, there were also little moments, little glimmers where, I'd be standing out on the coast in La Jolla overlooking the ocean or something, or walking along the beach, and I just had this overwhelming feeling of joy and gratitude just for being alive in the moment. And I knew there was something, something magical happening here. So even though that most of the time, I was kind of stuck in the darkness and the fear and all that, it wasn't all bad. And I wouldn't want to do that again, but it was a time that I'll never forget. I'll never forget that.
I really appreciate you sharing all that with us. I think it's really important that we have this conversation and we share it with other people. I mean, because that's the whole thing. We all have different ways of coping and dealing with difficulties, And for you, throwing yourself into the mix of it and really confronting it, living with it, so that your higher self could shine through, was really wonderful for you. And it's important that people hear that even though you felt that it was inescapable, your subconscious realized that there was an escape, that there was a way to move through it. Our conscious mind uses those finite terms like this is inescapable or overwhelming. We use those words, but our subconscious knows that we're stronger. And that little belief is what that light is that shines its way through, that we can hook into, and it brings us forward. And also, I love the fact that you understood that gratitude, being at the beach and being able to be really grateful for that moment, just that one little moment brings you to the next little moment, which brings you to the next moment, which brings you to the next moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a really wonderful story to tell people. I always tell people you don't have to have a big aha moment. You can have a little aha moment, just a little bit, because each little bit goes to the next step of another little bit and another little bit, and then those will add up. They really will.
Yeah, and what you just reminded me of is during that during that year of driving and following this internal teacher, I literally, was just paralyzed with just sheer terror, because I thought I was being hunted. I thought I was going to die any day. I thought I was being hunted. That's what my conscious mind was, my ego mind was telling me, and a lot of evidence, because that's where I put my focus, was appearing to reinforce that.
Right.
But as I had no place in the external world that I viewed that I could trust, and I had no choice but to go inside, and I'm learning this meditation process. One of the things is, the stars were teaching me. I think it was the constellation Cygnus. It was teaching me to do the standing meditation. I would stand there and the Kundalini energy would come up from the earth, and I could feel it wrapping around my spine and going into my head and all this kind of stuff. And the more that I did that over time in nature, suddenly I started to feel dramatically different. The fear just went away for periods of time. It was completely gone. And so this other side of me that was not afraid, even if that was true, was not afraid, it almost seemed to like enjoy it. That would be that higher self. That would be the higher soul self. But the first thing that happens, this little trick of the mind is as time goes by, the ego tries to come back and take credit for that. And I'm like, no. You ran away. You ran away, and the other side is what came back. You know, it was the soul self. It was the real self that came back, and it had zero fear. And it was teaching me. And so that was a dramatic transformation that didn't happen from anything else than through this internal process, you know, that was going on. So yeah, and that's what there was, is a bunch of little moments, just the little moments of gratitude and joy, and like nothing I've ever experienced, you know, because I mean, I spent 30 years drinking hard. Alcohol was my drug of choice. And by the time this whole thing started with my brother's death and everything, I was pretty much done anyway. You know, I was pretty much done with this place. I was bored, thought I'd seen it all, thought I knew everything there was to know. And I just was, I guess, unconsciously trying to drink myself to death, but it wasn't working. And I ended up quitting because I had to after the Kundalini thing happened. But, you know, that's when universe came along, and I was like, bam, your business fails. Boom, your house is in foreclosure. Boom, your brother dies. Boom, here's a Kundalini awakening. And boom, here's the book of Revelations for you, Jared. Have fun.
Yeah, check on one, exactly.
And you're in it.
Oh, let's mix it up. Yeah, I know. I mean, and that's really, you know, that's a really good point. It's just something I wanted to talk about with Jemima. We'll get to it at a different time. Is that how events link to each other, but they don't. They are individual events, but when we see them all linked to each other, then we start getting overwhelmed and letting ourselves sink. And that's all a part of the process. It's also like when we're shedding our skin of what's not working, then we've got to shed it all, you know. It's like, yeah, this isn't working. Well, gosh, really, neither is my job really working. So I can do one thing. I can actually decide to quit and sell my job and be thoughtful about moving on. But oftentimes we torture ourselves instead, and we wait until it goes belly up, and then we wait until our house goes into foreclosure, and we wait until things become catastrophic. And it's kind of a way of forcing ourselves through those big changes, as opposed to allowing ourselves to make those changes prior. But this is also how you moved into your spiritual self, you know. So, you know, one of the things I want to encourage people who are listening to do is start creating a practice for yourself now. Practice for yourself now. Start to understand what is your go-to now, so that if things do become difficult, you have a go-to. You have a practice. You have.
Can I say something with that one, Darcy and Jared? This last week was really obnoxious to me, like really, really freaking hard. And but the one thing that was consistent because of my healing over the last year and a half, 2 years, was my morning ceremony, my morning ritual, that I still continue to do that. I did not stop at all. It was my saving grace to be able to have something which before my traumatic experience in 2019, I wasn't practicing ritual. I wasn't doing any of this. And so out of control I was. I wouldn't even think, I don't even know where my head was, you know. But this time around, when I lost it, I thought I had demons out. I thought someone was killing me too, Jared. I thought everyone was after me and interconnected, and I was observing these voices in my head. Thank God for the observation through ceremony. I believe I was able to do that. But the whole meaning of ritual, getting up and just doing and it kind of was even though if I look back now this last week, I wasn't consciously involved in it, but I was doing it. It was a saving grace that my spiritual self, my higher self, knew that this is something that can get me connected to the spirit, to myself, to the ground, to earth. And even though Jemima, who was out of her mind, was sort of like not present with it, I was still doing it. And I do believe that helped me a hell of a lot to remain able to be outside of my mental status, my mental chaotic brain this week. So yeah, ritual, so important and so beautiful too. Such a beautiful thing to wake up and do. Like, whoa, I was such a hassle burning incense and saying prayers to the universe. Oh my God. Like, you know, it's such a wonderful thing to get a habit, like create a habit out of it. It's so beautiful to have that anchor to the earth, to spirit, to guide, to each other collectively, and know that we are not alone and we are okay and we can get through this, you know.
And one thing I'd like to say is, earlier on, yeah, I had this mortgage company, and I had, this big house that I'd built to sell on the lake in Chandler, and all of these things, all of these toys, and as that started to, you know, disappear, I viewed life as a victim. I was viewing myself as a victim. Then the Kundalini thing came along, and I shed all that stuff. I mean, I got rid of everything. I got rid of everything that I had that wouldn't fit in my car. And I never felt better, and I've never wanted to ever go back. So everything that I had an interest in, I lost an interest in. All my old friends disappeared. My family pretty much disappeared. I still talk to them from time to time, but it's very rare. We just don't relate anymore. And everything that was part of the old life was gone, and I just had zero interest in ever pursuing that again. And I look back now and I'm like, my goodness gracious, victim. I'm like, I was freed. It's like somebody freed the slaves. I mean, it was all chains. It was all chains. That's all it did. It was just suck the life out of me, and I wasn't enjoying myself, and it was just debt. So it was just all, just a bunch of shackles. And so, yeah, it's a much freer way to live.
And you had this Kundalini experience. Was that something that you sought out, or was it something that found you?
Oh, no, that was just the universe coming along and going, time to wake up, Tinkerbell. And it just literally just, shot up, and I felt it. I mean, I actually felt it. I remember I was at my house in Chandler, and I got these shocking revelations that were just too much. They were just too much. They were just, like my consciousness was like this, and this was showing me what was going on out here.
Right.
And it was just too much. And so it just literally blew my mind. But I remember grabbing my head, and it felt like something surged inside. And based on the research that I did, it looked like, the pineal gland shook off the calcification, and the antenna went up, and beep, 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 and now all of a sudden you're starting to get all these downloads. And then during the year where I was driving, I would focus on that, and it started off as a real faint, almost like real slight bumblebee buzzing, and then it would increase and increase and increase, and it continues to this day, and I can bring it on at will. But there's all kinds of fascinating stuff about this. I had no idea what Kundalini was. I thought I'd blown a gasket or something from drinking too much. And I was going online looking at symptoms of schizophrenia and all that kind of stuff. But the problem was I wasn't hearing voices in my head or anything. These were things that were happening in the real world outside me. I recognized the world. I didn't recognize any of the characters or any of the reality that I had grown up in. So it was a completely paradigm shift of realities. The old world was still there, but there was another dimension and going on at the same time. And so while this is happening through that year, I'm getting signals, and one of those signals is like the yin and yang. So I'd see 69 on the license plate, and what that was telling me is balance out, Jared, balance out. Learn to live with one foot in one and one foot in the other. And eventually I did, and I live with that to this day. But yeah, it would just build energy, and then, like I said, when I'd stand up and kind of assume the position and focus my my energy inside, it would just wrap up, and sometimes it feels like lightning going off in your head, with electrical currents and stuff. It could be painful. It can be painful at times. It can also really mess with your sleep.
Yeah, sure. I would think so. Yeah.
Jared, can I just quickly ask, what if you have any bouts of like post-traumatic coming again, or bouts of this vulnerability, dare I say, coming again? If you don't, awesome. But if you do, how do you deal?
Like vulnerability.
How do I? Sorry.
Vulnerability, you said?
Yeah, of your post-traumatic with your brother, or experience that being on the road for the year, or that's all of that interconnected. You have bouts where you just go, oh shit, I'm losing it again, or I'm feeling like what's real again.
I don't so much anymore. I really don't so much. I mean, I may fall into very short periods of depression. I heard this lady who was a spiritual teacher in Tucson that I went to, and she said something that was really interesting. And we're energetic beings, even according to science, from a metaphysical perspective, quantum physics and all that. We're just energy swirling masses and whatnot. And she said, depression is compression. It's when your energy contracts and goes within, because it's trying to get you to go within, to figure out what isn't working, what's the problem here. And so there's a very specific, useful purpose for that, that isn't meant to be drugged and suppressed with alcohol or drugs or anything else like that. But I remember going through it for years and years and years, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I guess I figured, maybe if I do it deep enough, God will feel sorry for me. I'm sorry to say that doesn't work.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I get it.
That's out. It's like that doesn't. And so eventually, I finally learned that lesson. But I mean, I still feel vulnerable. I still, fall into moments of it, but I'll usually snap out of it pretty fast now. I spend years and years and years in nothing but, deep. I wouldn't even call it depression. It's past depression. It's the point of despair. It's the point where I don't even have a reason to get out of bed and can barely find a reason to live, but again, I don't really feel so much like that anymore. I mean, I do have hours and sometimes a day here and there. I just feel it. I don't avoid it. I just feel it and let it pass.
Right. You kind of embrace it, understand it. Yeah. When I deal with depression, oftentimes I like to say that, it's anger, sadness, and frustration that has been suppressed or depressed, not expressed. And so we shove it in until we get muscular memory, where we lodge it in in places of our body, and then it'll come out when it comes out. And so when it does start to surface, it's you want to hold on to those feelings and say to yourself, wow, I've got this surge of these big feelings. This is what makes me human. This is what, my feelings are a gift to me. And if I know they're really hard to feel sometimes, but to observe them, to honor them, to feel them, to breathe with them, to take a minute with them or longer and let them be in your body, and then express them and know that they're not going to kill you. You're not going to die from it. I mean, because that is an idea that when those big feelings come up, it's going to kill us. And so to allow them to be there in your body and express them through holding them, cherishing them, breathing through it, totally breathing through it so that you can dissipate it and then release it. I used to really like the this idea of dealing with anger. This lady taught me a long time ago is that, the earth can transform anything. And sadly, even when we throw toxic waste into it, we walk away, the earth is going to absorb it, transform it, and turn it into something else. It's going to make it into maybe not something we recognize, but something that the earth is going to deal with. And so that standing tree meditation, where you stand and you plant your feet, your arms reach up to heaven and your feet reach down to the earth. And you ask the earth, you say, can I just give you this anger and ask you to help me transform it? Focusing, feeling yourself pushing your anger down into the earth and asking the earth to help you transform it is a really wonderful practice I do for myself. And I've done with children also. Let's give that to the earth and let's see if it comes up as flowers, I'll tell them. Take all that energy.
That is exactly what was happening, because, I would start out with just sheer fear and terror, and end up feeling completely peaceful and like almost enjoying what, the darkness and being kind of playful with it. So yeah, no, you're exactly right. And that's been the lesson, since I started doing plant medicines, and also from a lot of teachers that I've listened to and everything. It's like, just whatever you're feeling, feel it. Because that's like you said, it's trapped energy trying to release itself, trying to express itself. And it's the suppression that will kill me. The suppression of that.
It's like we hold on like this, right?
Yeah. And that leads to addictions and things like, you want to suffocate that feeling, that whole suppression. You want to like not feel that. So you go out to addictions such as myself.
Sure. I mean, if you look at athletes, right? They can't go into their sport like this. They're just going to go flat on their face, right? They have to relax their body. They have to get their breathing going. And it's the same thing with an emotional expression. You tighten against it and hold on to it, right? You're going to do a little internal combustion eventually. So, right. So relaxing your way through it, breathing through it, honoring it. I always say that, sadness is your door to compassion, right? Anger is your window to the do energy, to creating, to change. You're angry about something, you make changes. Right? Fear is telling you there's something wrong, something you need to look at, what's happening. And, there's always a flip side to everything that we feel if we can allow ourselves to take a moment to see it.
Yeah, they're doorways. They're doorways to learning and growth. All of our emotions. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why we have these human vessels, these avatar bodies. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, because these bodies and the emotions and the hormones and all that kind of stuff, we can learn things that are not possible to learn any other way.
But I love the idea that you went into nature, that you went driving. I have a tendency to do that as well. When I went through a major breakup, that's exactly what it is. I drove up the coast, I went camping. I had a big revelation because I got heat exhaustion, I got heat sickness, and here I was in a tent in the middle of nowhere getting like, maybe I'm gonna die right now. I thought I might be like, just have brought myself here to just completely kill myself. And my friend showed up later. I had told her where my site was, and she's like, oh my God, what happened to you? I'm like, heat exhaustion. We were pouring water on top of me, and I was lying on the ground, and I realized, oh yeah, I'm letting all of this toxic relationship, all this toxic behavior of the last 9 years just come to the surface so painfully. Heat exhaustion is painful. And we were just pouring it into the ground, pouring the water over me. I was literally laying in a puddle of mud, and it was so amazing, so revealing, was so cleansing. And then of course afterwards we started laughing, because that's what that friend does for me. And I got my acid balance back in my body through the right thing to eat. And it was really, really amazing. And then we just listened to the sounds of nature in silence for a while as I allowed myself to process. That was a 9-year toxic relationship. I would say the first 4 years were probably fine. And then the last 5 were, reinforcement of bad behavior. It's like a continuum. So I sure love the whole driving in nature and listening to nature, because animals, insects, they all talk to you when you're ready to listen.
Yeah, and nature, I heard somebody say nature is a great teacher. I learned so much just from observing nature, because the lessons to everything, like the whole universe's secrets, are within nature and its processes.
I think the humans are the most naive of the animals, of the beasts. We're the ones who need the lessons from Mother Nature and all the little beasts there. They interact and do whatever is necessary to keep it all going strong. Even if it is killing an animal to kill an animal, it's just the same thing. It's all set up to design to help each other out. Whereas we have come in and kind of gone the opposite direction. I won't say effed it up, but yes, I will.
Yeah, the trees are way smarter.
Yeah. Hey guys, we have to kind of call it there. Darcy, I would love it if you could finish with a meditation for us. And Jared, just before you do go, you're such a warrior. You are such a solid soul, and I love you to bits. And I'm so honored that you have shared your story. What an inspiration you are to me, to Darcy, to everybody else. Like, wow, really uplifting and survivor story. So just cheers, mate. You're a superstar. I love you.
I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. I really do.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. It's my privilege. I appreciate both of you guys for being here and asking me. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Dad. Absolutely. All right. Well,
Over
let's
to you,
put.
Darcy. Yay!
I don't know. I really just loved listening to Jared talk today, and
I know.
so let's just put our feet on the ground. How about that? Let's just put our feet on the ground, and let's put our body up straight, and let's close our eyes a moment. You can put your hands up or down, and if you're at home watching, why don't you allow yourself to sit up straight today? If you want to sit on the ground or sit in a chair, let's try to keep our spine really straight today. A lot of times I tell people, go ahead and lie down, but today let's sit up and let's feel our feet on the ground. Let's feel our feet on the ground. So allow yourself to just take a moment to feel your feet on the ground. And just notice if you're barefoot or in shoes and socks. If you're wearing shoes, just notice how the socks and the shoes feel against your feet. If you're barefoot, just notice the texture of what your feet are against. Just noticing your feet for a moment. And then place your attention on the tip of your nose and allow yourself to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose easily and effortlessly. And just noticing the cool air going in and the warm air going out. And if it's warm where you are, notice the warm air going in and a slightly difference of the air going out. Without trying to change the pattern of breathing in any way, just allowing the air to go in and the air to go out. In and out. And if there are sounds outside the room, passing traffic or people talking, dogs barking, just allowing those sounds to come in and go out. The sounds come in and go out, and they're just sound. The way the breath comes in and goes out, the sounds come in and go out. And if thoughts are coming through your mind, just allowing the thoughts to come in and go out. The way the sounds come and go, the way the breath comes and goes, the thoughts come and go, memories, ideas, thoughts are all thoughts, coming and going, the way sounds come and go. And if you have any physical discomforts, just allowing those physical feelings to come and go. If it's a tickle or an itch or a discomfort, just allow it to come up and go. Touch, it's all a part of touch. Noticing the temperature of the room on your exposed skin. Noticing the clothes on your body, what's tight, what's loose, what's soft, what's scratchy. And allowing that awareness to just go the way the thoughts come and go, the way the breath comes and goes, the way sound comes and goes. Breathing in this moment. And the way feelings come and go. A feeling, an emotion, small or large. Feeling comes up, feeling it, and letting it go. Noticing where it is in your body. And now taking your awareness back to your feet on the ground. And here's a thought. Realize that the chair or the floor is supporting your body. Feel yourself supported by the chair and the floor. Feeling yourself with your feet on the ground and knowing that your feet are supported by the floor. And knowing that the floor is supported. The ground is supported by the earth. Breathing, knowing that the earth is supported by the orbit. Knowing that the orbit is supported by the sun. Knowing, feeling, and experiencing that. And knowing, feeling, and experiencing that the sun and the orbit and the earth are supported by the universe. Feeling that, sensing it, knowing it. And so, in essence, you too are supported by the universe. And just allowing yourself to really appreciate that. Be grateful for that connection. And breathe for just a moment. And here's my wish for you this week. That as you walk with your feet connected to the ground, the earth, you'll also walk with the knowledge that you and I are also connected to the universe and to each other. And you can allow yourself to open your eyes and bring this energy back into your room. Come back into this moment. There we are. Thank you, Jemima.
Thank you, Darcy. Thank you, Jared. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jemima.
You guys are amazing and beautiful. Have an incredible rest of the day. Peace out. Oh, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Damn it. We forget those things. Have a wonderful one. Jared, we'll see you soon, my love. Peace out.
All righty, take care.
Thank you. Bye.